You can inspect a property and even see the land with your eyes. You can even receive documents from the seller and sign the necessary agreement and still lose millions of naira. Why? Because buying a property is not just about buying a beautiful piece of land or house that you like. It's all about finding out what exactly you are buying, whether the person who is selling the property to you has the right to sell the property, and whether there's any pending legal issues or whether someone has an interest over the property that you want to buy. Now, in today's video, I'm going to show you 5 important due diligence you need to carry out on a property before you buy right here in Nigeria. Now, number one is what I call title due diligence. So this part is very, very important. In fact, this is the first aspect of due diligence that you need to carry out when you want to buy a property. Now, a title is basically what transfers ownership from the seller to the buyer. So when you want to buy that property, it's very important that you conduct a due diligence on that title. So first, you're trying to find out what title that the property comes with, and also you want to be sure that the title of that property is fully registered. So take for instance, right here in the state of Enugu, we use common documents like common title documents like C of O, deed of assignment, deed of sublease, or deed of lease. So when you want to buy a property and the person who is selling that property to you is telling you that this property has this particular title, your duty is to find out the title that comes with the property. Also, you can move to the government authorities that are in charge of land administration so that you can be able to verify that particular title. Right here in the state of Enugu, we have the likes of Ministry of Land, we have the NGs. They are the government bodies that are in charge of ensuring that every property is registered. So when you want to buy, please always go to these bodies and verify this title document. So because you just want to be sure that whatever you are buying is genuine. So just in case you buy a property and you want to resell in the future, you know that whatever you're selling to that person is also very genuine. Because there have been cases where people made mistakes of buying the wrong title. So they went ahead to buy a property without conducting a due diligence on the title that they want to buy. And most times they find out after they have finished making payments. But when you want to buy property, this is why it is also very important that you work with a professional real estate consultant and also a property lawyer. So a property lawyer is one who helps you to carry out due diligence on this property. And also, even a real estate consultant can as well do that. I mean, someone who is very experienced can as well help you to conduct search at the NGs or Ministry of Land. So it is very important that you carry out a search on the title before you buy so that you don't end up regretting your investment. So number two is what I call seller's due diligence. So this aspect is where you now verify the legitimacy of the person who wants to sell the property to you. So take for instance, someone approach you and the person wants to sell a particular property, is telling you that he's the owner. Now you cannot take that word at face value because you don't know if truly the person is the owner of the property or whether the person is trying to claim a property that does not belong to you. So what you need to do beyond conducting a search on the title, you also need to conduct a search on the person who is selling to you. And how do you do that? You need to check the details of the person with the details on the document. Take for instance, the person's name is Okoye and he's telling you that he's the owner of the property. There should be details in that property that signifies that Okoye is the owner of that particular property. And beyond that, you also need to ask him some necessary questions because there have been cases where people who took property that are not theirs because the documents was under their custody. So they went ahead to sell those property without seeking consent of the real owner. Although there are cases that where even someone who is not the rightful owner of a property can also sell a property on behalf of another person. But you need to be sure that the real owner of that property gives the person the consent to sell that property because an agent can help someone to sell a property, but you need to be sure that that person has the right to offer such service. So the number three is what I call site due diligence. Now, most people have made the mistakes of buying a property without visiting the property in person. And this is very common with diasporas. I mean, Nigerian diaspora, people who are not in Nigeria. So they see a property online, they request for details, and they get details of that property. And they just take every information that has been given to them as face value. They didn't take out time to either send a representative or maybe go to that property in person to see it and then know if the property is genuine and if it's something that meets their needs. So when you want to buy a property, please, outside the due diligence on the title and also the seller, go to the site. go and see the property in person. Because when you get to the site, first, it helps you to know the current condition of the property. It helps you to know the topography, to know if the land is good, if it's flooded, and also to know if there's any development you need to do before you start doing anything on the property. And also, it helps you to be sure that the information you are giving is accurate. Because beyond people sending videos to you and telling you that a property is in a certain location, when you go there in person, you will now verify if the location or the information you are giving corresponds with what is on ground. So this is why site inspection is also important. And another reason why site inspection is important is that it helps you to look out for signs. I mean, signs like beware of 419, this house is not for sale, buyers beware, caveat emptor. All these signs helps you to ask the necessary question and also get every information that you need. Because when you go to the site, once you see beware of 419, that property is kind of suspicious. It could be that the real owner does not want to sell that property. It could also mean that that property maybe have a litigation issue, or maybe it's in court, or maybe there's a land dispute maybe between one community and another community. Look for the people who are living close to the property. Ask them the necessary question about the property. Get to know what they know about that property, because information that you get from them can save you from losing millions of naira. So this is also why site inspection is very important before you buy. So the next on the due diligence checklist is what I call litigation due diligence. So at this point, this has to do with finding out if the property that you want to buy has a court issue, a legal issue, because people have bought properties that they did not really take out time to check if there's any litigation over that property. And after buying that property, they now found out that that property has a court issue. So this is also why it is good to work with a property lawyer, because a lawyer is one who helps you to find out if there's any court case or any legal matter over that property. And this will help you to know that you're not just buying a property. You are buying a property that you know that is genuine, that does not have any court case, because it will be very painful that after buying a property, you now find out that that property has a court case. That means you're going to spend more money, and sometimes you might end up even losing the money you've spent. So this is why it's good to work with professionals. I know people, most times they say, no, I want to do it by myself. Oh, I know this and know that. And because they say these things because they want to save money, they want to save costs. But in trying to save costs, they end up losing millions of naira. So why not work with a professional property lawyer, one who is very experienced, one who can guide you and also conduct due diligence even on the court level. So this is also why it is important to ensure that you carry out this due diligence before you invest. The final due diligence on our checklist is what I call loan due diligence. So this aspect is very, very important. I remember why I was helping a client of mine to acquire a property right here in the city of Enugu, specifically at Centenary. So when I went with a lawyer to inspect a property, I remember when we sat down with the family, he asked a very important question. He asked the family if that property was used to obtain loan from a bank or maybe from an NGO or any organization. So this question is very important. So even when you want to buy property, please ask these kind of questions, because sometimes people will not tell you what they use that property to do because they are in need of money and they just want to sell that property at all cost. So they will not tell you, oh, we use this property to obtain a loan, or we use this property as a collateral maybe for one business or the other. So this is also why you need to work with professionals, because beyond what they tell you, people can go underground and carry out investigations to know if that property was used to obtain a loan or maybe obtain any kind of financial aid from any organization. So this is why it is important that you ask all these questions, because when you work with a professional, the person will know the necessary questions to ask the people who are selling that property, so that you not lose your money, and also whatever property you are buying, you ensure that the property is not going to have any issue in the future. So these are the due diligence that you need to carry out on a property. Remember, the first one is title due diligence, where you need to check the title of the property that you want to buy. The second one is what I call seller's due diligence. And the third one is site due diligence. And the fourth one is litigation due diligence. And finally, I mentioned loan due diligence. So these are the due diligence you need to carry out. And if you're an investor and you want to own properties right here in the city of Enugu, and you don't know how to carry out all this due diligence on a property, just reach out to the number showing on your screen. And if you want to own affordable genuine properties right here in the city of Enugu, either for land investment or you want a place where you can buy and then build, and you're looking for an experienced real estate consultant right here in the city of Enugu that you want to work with. So all you need to just reach out to the number showing on your screen, and I'll be glad to work with you so I can help you make secure and profitable real estate investment. My name is Obaleke Emmanuel. I'm a real estate consultant, and I create content like this to help smart individuals like you make secure and profitable real estate investment. And if you found value in this video, please like, subscribe, and then follow along for more. See you in the next one.